Hi everyone, it's Sandra, and this is Gilligan, my converted sandbox worm bin. By the end of this video, I am going to convince you, I'm actually going to give you 10 reasons why you need to use one of these converted children's sandboxes as a worm farm. I'm speeding up the video as I empty Gilligan, as I outline to you my 10 reasons. And by the end of the video, I'm going to convince you you need to start one of these sandbox worm farms. First of all, just look at the format. It's got an incredible surface area to depth ratio. That's perfect for composting worms. It's easy to give a total bin stir like I'm doing here. Now we have Gilligan raised up on 2 plastic shelving units to make it more accessible for me sitting down in my wheelchair. That's a great height for anyone standing as well, so it won't break your back. So reason number 1 is the incredible format of these worm farms. They're perfectly suited to be for composting worms. We know that these composting worms like to cruise along the surface, and even though I've had bedding that is 16, 18 inches deep in Gilligan, and I have found worms pressed to the bottom, just like little mimes with their cheeks pressed up against the bottom of Gilligan, we know that they like coming to the top and cruising around, mating, depositing cocoons. That is the natural behavior of these worms. So having such a huge surface area is an incredible boost to your worm farm operation. Worm buckets are simply the wrong proportion. They are far too deep for the amount of surface area. Remember, all the rules say that your population of worms will increase according to the surface volume of your worm farm. So go big, get a Gilligan. Reason number 2 is that they are incredibly cost effective. They're available locally. Just look at these ads that I found in just a few minutes on Facebook Marketplace. Once people have outgrown this as a family, they want to give them away. This is a great use of something that would otherwise sit unused until it's probably damaged and cracked and then just gets tossed away. I don't support purchasing one of these new, but look locally. You're going to find them in the Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji, Craigslist. They are all over and often for free. So reason number 3 is they are good for the environment. You don't want something like this ending up in a landfill when it is still very valuable as a resource for us worm farmers. Reason number 4 is, yes, they're made out of plastic, but I did some research on them and this showed that the plastic used in children's sandboxes meets much higher standards for something like resistance to the sun damage and breaking down and the shedding of microplastics. The information I found that said it's also BPA free. So most of us who use totes or plastic buckets in the garden have eventually had to toss them out because they get brittle. Well, these sandboxes are built to be much more durable because they have to meet the standards for children's play over many years and exposure to harsh outdoor conditions. Now you see me using a 3-pronged metal fork in this video to scoop up the vermicompost. I'll eventually switch to my green scoop, but you don't want to use harsh metal tools and scrape them on the bottom of this. It is plastic, so be realistic. Yes, it is BPA free and doesn't shed microplastics, but you don't want to deliberately damage it with metal tools. So that's, I guess, one caution about using this as a worm farm. So reason number 5 why you need one of these converted sandboxes as a worm bin is that it doesn't have to be perfect. You can pick them up used, and even if they're in a slightly less than perfect condition, like maybe even if they're missing a lid, that is good enough for you to convert it to a worm farm. It simply means that you could cover the bin by placing it under an overhang, maybe using cardboard or a heavy carpet sample or something like a piece of wood to cover the vermicompost. If there happens to be a crack in either the lid or the bottom, well, hey, that's just extra ventilation. We drilled hundreds of holes in Gilligan's lid to give ventilation to my worms, so a hole in the lid is no problem at all. So you don't need a perfect one. Close enough is good enough. So the novelty factor of these worm farms is really great for engaging both adults and children in this as a hobby. Up on these shelves, it's accessible for me in a wheelchair, but it also is accessible for little kids to take a look at the worms. Wouldn't this be a great worm farm for a school or a children's day program? Everybody loves my Gilligan, and even the neighbors love to come and see the worms. So now let's just talk about how big this worm farm really is. This large size means that the vermicompost is resistant to temperature and moisture swings. So I use a thermostatically controlled seed heating mat under Gilligan through the winter months, but I think here on the west coast of Canada, my worms would be fine surviving our winter even without it. And certainly the large mass of vermicompost means it also doesn't heat up too much in the summer months. That might work really well for those of you in actually even warmer climates. The large volume of vermicompost also makes Gilligan resistant to overfeeding. And because there's so much bedding in here, he's also resistant to underfeeding. The worms always have something to eat. So reason number 8 why I'm going to convince you to get one of these worm farms is it supports a lazy worm farming lifestyle. Gilligan's size means you don't have to feed him every week. You can leave the worms undisturbed for long periods of time. They're going to have plentiful bedding and resources to dig into, meaning if you want to go away on a holiday or you just want to set it and forget it, this large bin is perfect for you. You see me here emptying Gilligan's contents into these styrofoam totes. I can tell you that this type of worm farm is a black gold machine. I was positioning Gilligan to give me 3 harvests a year. That's about 180 to 200 liters or about 47 to 52 gallons of vermicompost 3 times a year. However, we now have a planned move in our future, and I was not able to really put the type of bedding volume into Gilligan over this winter months that would have given me that big of a harvest this time around. Regardless, you'll see me pulling out material here, and I still stand poised to get about 75 liters or about 20 gallons out of this winter harvest. Moving Gilligan's vermicompost into these styrofoam totes right now is a way that I am managing the sale of our house. It has nothing to do with Gilligan's overall performance. Ideally, I would have left this material in a bit longer, but that's life. So reason number 9, you're going to get up to 3 harvests a year. And like I said, 180 to 200 liters of vermicompost 3 times a year out of this worm farm. So reason number 10 why I'm going to convince you to get one of these converted sandbox worm bins is it is so convenient to set up and dismantle as I'm doing now and store it when not in use. This worm farm probably weighs less than a kilogram, about 2 pounds. So if you live in a harsh climate or you don't want to be bothered heating the worm bin through the winter, set it up for your spring, summer, and fall, and then dismantle it. Lean it up against a fence or your garage for the winter months, and then set it up again in the summer. You're going to see us move it at the end of the video and just see just how easy it is. So reason number 10, there's no excuse because this thing is lightweight to move.
I see a worm, but that's okay, right, dear?
Oh, for sure. Here's Amy and Landon tipping it off into the garden and rinsing off every last worm. I want you to see that my husband is doing this with his shirt and tie on his lunch hour. What a sweetie. Have I convinced you yet? Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye for now.